Rosalind hoisted the broadsword to a high guard, exposing the sweat-slicked skin of her midriff. By sight or by scent, the grey wolf took the bait. It lunged, snarling and snapping. She sidestepped its frothing muzzle and swung her weapon with both hands. The neocarbon blade made contact behind the alpha's ears and cleaved its head with a single stroke. Its body toppled onto the spongy talus, forelegs twitching as they always did after decapitation. She stepped back and adopted a low guard. A menacing growl drew her focus to the right. Across the bluff, Socks crouched in a 4-point stance, poised between attack and retreat. To his front, 5 smaller greys cringed, trapped against the cliff. Thanks to its concave contour, the yowling betas had no way to flank the border collie. Thanks to her broadsword, they had no leader to front a breakout. One of them, a female with ruddy eyes, summoned a half-hearted charge. Socks's hackles raised, bulking his collar's white ruff. His black tail curled beneath his hind legs, protecting his nethers. "I need help here," he said. "It's only a matter of time before they realize they outnumber me." "I'm coming," she shouted, starting in his direction. "Use your chemo rifle and save your legs." Rosalind sheathed the broadsword and unslung the rifle. She pressed its hefty stock into her shoulder and peered down its gleaming barrel. The twin sights aligned on the most brazen beta. Socks inched backwards in response to a more spirited charge. "Any day now!" She squeezed the trigger. Recoil drove the stock backward, provoking a grunt. The shimmering projectile arced across the bluff and struck the female's throat, severing its braying howl. A cloud of yellow mist enveloped its head. The grey whimpered and shrank backward. Her forelegs collapsed. She dragged her twitching body another 5 feet before the terminal convulsions started. Rosalind fired 4 more times before the convulsions stopped. The projectiles dropped the other members of the pack. Socks crept forward once the chemo clouds dissipated and sniffed their carcasses. "They're younglings. How old?" "Definitely a new brood." Rosalind eyed the blood-red lichens clinging to the bone-white cliff. 6 months ago, she and Socks had destroyed a much larger wolf pack in this same spot. She had deployed so many chemo projectiles, the lichens had withered and died. The new growth had spawned within the last 2 weeks, first appearing in tiny crevices and shallow fissures. Its feathery tendrils now spanned the face like crimson brushstrokes on a vaulting canvas. She marveled at its resilience. Life could take hold anywhere, and once it did, it was nearly impossible to eradicate. Lichens, wolves, her and Socks, and the sheep. She turned from the cliff and took in the breathtaking vista. Millions of pearl-white sheep filled the yawning expanse of undulating gray pastures. Hundreds of distinctive flocks milled in silence, each assemblage separated by the Bloodwater River's pulsing tributaries. Myriad shades of black, gray, and white dominated the rumpled landscape, making the bloodwater and lichens even more vibrant. An ashen sky crowned the valley, her home for the past year, or for what felt like a year. Socks trotted over. "I haven't seen a wolf pack in some time." He lay by her feet, tongue lolling, and scanned the valley. "Hope that's not a sign of things to come." She kneeled beside him and scratched behind his ears. "We'll deal with them as we've always done. We'll protect our flocks." "By eating them?" "We only slaughter what we need." He glanced up at her and whined. I'm sure I heard somewhere that we're not supposed to slaughter any sheep." "But there are so many," she said, motioning to the valley's rolling folds. "We need shelter and food, right?" "I suppose." She slung the chemo rifle and stood. "Speaking of food..." Socks licked his nose. "How many do you want today?" "Let's take 50. "Double the number we took yesterday?" "I'm starving," she said. "You must be too." "Now that you mention it." He rose, exposing the white fur covering his hind legs from paws to hocks. "Give the command." "Seek!" Socks bolted down the bluff, legs pumping so fast his paws barely touched the ground. She tracked his black and white coat against the drab backdrop as he navigated the intervening hillocks. Within 30 seconds, he'd reached the nearest pasture.